There we go. Think we're recording. Cool. Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for spending your Saturday afternoon / whatever time of day it is in your time zone. I'm assuming if you signed up for my class, you have some idea of who I am, but just in case you don't, I'm Ian Markon. I've been, I guess, painting miniatures for going on 17-ish years now. And my first ReaperCon was in 2012. And ever since then, I took all kinds of classes, learned all kinds of fun stuff, and have just been putting that stuff into practice as best I can ever since then. And this is actually a new class for me. A lot of the other classes that I've done this weekend have been old classes that I'm fairly practiced with. So there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve you'll have to go through with me as we figure this all out. But I think that we're going to have a blast, and that if you just have fun painting along on whatever miniature you have brought, that hopefully I can take a little bit of the fear of painting faces away and give you some neat little tricks that will make your characters more expressionful as you paint them. By quick way of disclaimer, I am going to paint on a chibi today. I know a lot of you guys or various people have really strong opinions on whether chibis are awesome or whether chibis are not. I tend to believe that they are awesome, but don't worry. This is not just a chibi painting class. Everything you learn here is essentially the way that I approach all my smaller faces. But if I tried to just demonstrate to you on a really small face, you couldn't see what I was doing, no matter how far I zoomed in. So this will give me a bigger palette to work with. And at the same time, I'm not trying to hold like a giant or something like that while we're working together here. So cool. With that, let me go ahead and engage my presentation camera so that you guys can see what I'm working on, and we'll get started here. So presentation camera, activate. There we go now. So in front of me today, I have Small World Arnice, I believe it is, and she has an awful lot of expression sculpted into her face already. So we'll get to have fun partially bringing that to life, partially tweaking it to show you how, with just a little flick of a brush here and there, hopefully you can, alter what is already sculpted in the face to give a slightly different facial expression there. So that's what I'm going to be working on here. As you can see, I have done nothing with her other than I have washed her with soap and water. And so with that, we should probably get a base coat going on this face so that we've got something to work with. Now, when I'm painting my smaller miniatures, I usually always start with the eyes first, so I can be as sloppy as I want around the eyes. And then once I'm done with the eyes, I paint the skin around them. And I feel a lot more confident in my ability to control my painting around the eye than I would if I painted the entire face first, had all the shading and highlighting perfect, and then tried to paint the eye without accidentally like smearing across the side of the nose or something like that. So that's the typical order that I paint in. But what I want to do first is I want us to get some of the skin tone out on top of things. So let's just paint the entire face, including the eye sockets, our flesh tone here. Now, I gave some example colors in the class description. I'm going to start and use Warrior Flesh, which now has another name, which I can't remember, but as long as it's 09443, you'll be doing well. You do not need to pick the same flesh tone I'm using, not even remotely. This is how Ian paints skin class. This is simply an expressions class. So this is just going to be a base for us. I like this Warrior Flesh a lot. I get a lot of use out of it. So that's the one we're going to go with. So shake that guy up there. And let's plop it down on our palette here. Flesh tones are 09443 is now bronzed flesh. Thank you. That I couldn't remember what the name. I knew that the names changed, and in preparation for teaching my classes, I tried to order new dropper bottles with the new names on them so I wouldn't confuse people. And apparently Reaper had old stock left of the old labels, and so my new pot still had the old labels there. So anyway, let's shake that up, put some down on your palette here. Skin tones, and provided it's a lighter skin tone. A lot of your lighter skin tones and a lot of your lighter paints in general have a real unfortunate tendency to kind of get chalky and get some texture as you're working back and forth over the complicated geometry of, say, a face. And so I find I tend to thin down my skin tones and my light colors more than I normally would when I'm base coating. So I'm going to go ahead and get the way that I water down my paints is I get a brush full of water and I mix it in with my little paint puddle. I don't mix it too far to the edges, because if I do that, then I'll make the surface area of the paint puddle much larger and it will dry out a lot faster. So I mix it just to the edges, get it all thoroughly in there. And then I've got a little test that I do where I take the paint puddle and, like an amoeba, I draw out little amoeba legs on it and I see what the amoeba legs do. Generally, for like a lot of blending, you want to see that the amoeba legs slowly retract in on themselves, but don't instantly break into, and I'll lift it up here for it, don't instantly break into little water droplets. If it breaks into water droplets instantly, you know that it's a little too thin. And if you drag out the amoeba leg and the amoeba leg like stays there and doesn't move like at all, then it's probably too thick and you need to add a little bit more water. If it's too thin, you can just add a little bit more paint. In this case, this is probably pretty good for a blending consistency, but I don't want to accidentally end up with texture on my face. So I'm going to add just one more brush full to make this a little thinner than it needs to be so that I can really get nice base coats on the face without having to worry about anything. So there we go. Got some color down. Let's break out our niece here and let's just let's get busy with some base coating here. I try to work pretty boldly when you're base coating flesh colors, because you don't want to get stuck working with half dried stuff. So try to work from wet to dry. And then once you've got an area covered, don't go back to that area. You don't want to accidentally pull up the half dried paint. You can see that in some areas it's not wanting to cover entirely for me. This is because I'm going over just pure washed bones, right? So a lot of folks might have you prime before their classes or do something else like this. Nothing wrong with that, but oftentimes I find it helpful just to show people how I even approach base coating, so that when they're trying to use the techniques that I'm using, they're coming from the same starting point that I'm utilizing, and instead of a different entire starting point. So cool. We're getting there. It's definitely going to take a couple of coats. But that's okay. We'll just get a chance to hang out all together as our paint dries. Really exciting, I know, right? So there we go. We're going to want to give it a second to let that dry fully before we try to slap another coat on top of it. If you want, you can hit her cute little pointy ears here. I'm going to skip those because those aren't going to be the main focus of what I'm doing, but totally something you could do. Let's while we're doing that, let's talk about the remainder of our colors that I'm going to be using. So whenever I paint a miniature, I pick a liner color. I pick one of Reaper's liner colors. It's almost always brown liner or blue liner for me. Those are just my favorites. And they're very close to black without actually being black. They have some color in them, so it adds a little bit of interest to your darkest shadows. And if I use the same darkest shadow consistently across the miniature, it tends to make the miniature look like it has a consistent light source that's hitting it. So for this case, I'll be using brown liner. If I had been painting the rest of the miniature and using blue liner elsewhere, I would use blue liner. I make that choice when I start the miniature. It just helps keep things consistent for me. If it wasn't for, if I wasn't, sorry, let me take a step back. The other thing that I generally do is, in addition to picking a liner color, I tend to pick an off-white that I would use on every portion of the miniature as kind of the highest highlight. And once again, this just makes it look like you have a consistent light source throughout the whole miniature. We'll grab Vampiric Mist. This is a very nice off-white, just I'd say, hint of blue or hint of gray going on in there at the same time. And so not totally white, but pretty close to it. It works out pretty nicely for you there. So we got those. We're going to need a pure white because this will give us our highest reflections and like the eyes. Clear magenta is like a miraculous color for in terms of doing makeup because it thins down so super well. It does a lot of really nice makeup effects. But you can use a ton of different colors for some of the makeup effects. Night Sky Indigo. Okay, I'll be honest, I've never really used Night Sky Indigo with flesh before, but I was forced to make a concession because my absolute, bar none, favorite color for all skin tone stuff for shading in the past was Dusky Skin, which, as I understand it now, is not really a thing anymore. So I liked it because it had a purplish hint to it and yet was desaturated. So we're going to desaturate our Night Sky Indigo with Warrior Flesh and try to put together something that's close to Dusky Skin already. So I will carefully sequester away my now unlikely to be resumed or continued paint color. And then past that, we had Warrior Flesh like you saw, and then I've got Youthful Flesh for a little bit of highlights. We'll tack on that. We'll also pick some colors, and this will just kind of be free form. I'll ask your guys' opinions a little bit, and I'll toss my own opinions out there for what we should do in terms of colors of eyes. Maybe we want to do eyeshadow. Maybe we don't want to do all kinds of fun things like that. We'll do that all together. It's looking like we're pretty close to dry. So as long as I apply it thickly, I feel content putting another layer on the miniature. So I'm going to switch to doing that again. See if I can manage to stay in the center of the frame, or if I go wandering all over the place. If I go wandering, I'm sorry. I'll try to get that fixed up. We're just going for some level of opacity for us to work over with all of our other colors here. And it does not want to stay up there, so I'm going to mash it in there, bend it to my painting will. There we go. Cool. We're getting there. All right. While we're waiting for that to dry, let's prepare our colors for some of the next steps here. Now, like I said a little bit earlier, and some of you probably caught this, some of you might have tuned in a little bit later. The goal of this is not necessarily to show you exactly how I approach skin tones here or anything. There's entire classes you can take over skin tones. So we're just going to kind of roughly block out the face and then focus a little bit more in depth on the fun effects that you can do with the face. So nonetheless, we want to get a little bit of our shadows in there. We want to kind of define where the shadows and highlights would go on the face, and we can move from there. So let's go ahead and make that mix that I was talking about a little bit earlier. So bringing my palette back into focus, let's grab our Night Sky Indigo and our Warrior Flesh. If you do not own Night Sky Indigo, just take a desaturated purple if you've got one and mix it together with a little bit of Warrior Flesh. I'm going to put 1 drop of each down there. This is apparently solid. Break out the pokey tool. And now we're cooking. Cool. Nice. 1 drop of Night Sky, 1 drop of Warrior Flesh. And then let's also take our Youthful Flesh or our Flesh highlight color and put some of that down so we've got a little bit of it to work with. And then these are much too watery. So let's go ahead, or sorry, much too thick. So let's go ahead and add some water so that we can get them ready. So once again, I just do my brush full and mix it in there like that. You know, that's not half bad. This is actually, it's not as desaturated as Night Sky Indigo. Maybe I could add a little bit of gray. But you know what? I'm going to leave it alone. For our purposes, that's actually a pretty decent flesh shade color. I don't want to make you guys constantly run back and forth from your paint collection if your paint collection isn't right next to you like mine is. So let's do that there. Cool, cool. Making some progress. All right. Let's check on our little warrior gal here. She's getting there. She needs a couple more seconds. So let's go ahead and plan out how we want to do the rest of the miniature then while that continues to dry. So I think that it would look very nice to do green eyes on her, but I could also be persuaded to do blue or purple. What would you guys like to see? Let me know in the chat. What are we going to paint here? Ooh, all the votes coming in same time. Think green is winning. A quick glance says green. Okay, then green it shall be. You know, in times past, I've painted a vampire gal, and I would do one eye one color and one eye another color. But we'll make it easy, and we'll just do green for the moment here. So let's see. So if we're going to do green, what I like to see is I like to grab out a couple of different greens. Let me go to the quick kit here. And I generally want a dark green with some vibrancy to it. And then I want a lighter green with some vibrancy to it. So I really like this dragon green as being a darker green with a fair amount of vibrancy to it. So I'll pick that one. And then I really like Naga green at the same time, but I don't know that that's actually quite bright enough. So I've got Squaga green. That's even brighter still. Or we've got, oh, Cat's Eye green. That worked pretty well. I'll flip them up so you can see the bottoms. You don't have to pick these exact colors. There's nothing really magical about this, but let's grab these. These look like these would be good eye colors for us. So, and then in that case, I'll try to do like purplish makeup for her. I think that will look really striking and we'll be in good shape. So Cat's Eye. Yeah, Cat's Eye is a perfect eye color, right? It's in the name. It's in the name. Okay. Here we go. She's coming along. I'm going to be a science nerd here. I'm going to increase the Reynolds number in order to drive the drying effect here by blowing on it. So I do use a blow dryer from time to time. I just do not have one off the top of my head. Yeah, Naga green was the middle. So dragon green is the darkest. Naga green was the middle. Cat's Eye green was the lightest. You could easily just do something like this and then mix half and half between the two of them to make your mid-tone. Yeah, turbulent airstream. That's right. That's right. Okay. Awesome. I think she's in a good enough position for us to continue. So let's block out some shadows on her face real quick. Now, believe it or not, how you block out these shadows is going to be one of the first steps in controlling how you want what expression and kind of what face shape you want to give her. You're not necessarily limited to what the sculptor sculpted. So I'm going to take my, I'm going to take that purple that we mixed up with the night sky and the warrior flesh, and I'm going to grab some of that on my brush here. And to give myself a little bit more control, I'm going to wipe some of it off on my thumb. And then I'm going to block some stuff in. Now, if I wanted to make her cheeks a little bit more full, I would let the shadow be further down her face. But I could make her cheeks more angular if I went on the other side of the miniature and I carried the shadow up a little bit further on her cheeks. See if I can, so you can have more of a sharper face, or you can have one more full of cheek. There's not a huge difference between the two of those, as you can see on the side, but there's a little bit of difference. For our purposes here, let me see what happens when I finish blocking out the purple in here. Let's see if it hides it effectively. So there we go. Now we got sharper face, and we would just normally we can sit here, and if you guys want, we can make some nice color gradients, and you guys can see how that goes from looking like she's got a purple beard to actually looking like some normal flesh tones there and everything. Or we can do the more full of cheek version. Sorry, I tilted that at a horrible angle for you guys viewing. Doing things like this. So the more full of cheek follows the original sculpt a little bit better, gives her a little more cutesy, a little more fierce, a little more cutesy, a little more fierce. Kind of up to you. So what are we doing? We doing cutesy or are we doing fierce? Got one vote for cutesy. Need more in the chat. What are we doing? Ooh. Oh, it's neck and neck. Fierce is coming out strong. Holy cow. It's 50-50. I'll tell you what then. If it's about 50-50, I think fierce might half and half. we can paint her like Two-Face from Batman there or something. No, if it's close, then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do fierce, because fierce is a little bit further differentiation from the way that the sculpt originally went. And that will show you guys a little bit more what I mean when I say you can really control the expression of the face by where you slap the paint down. So by doing it this way, we've made the cheek more angular. We've made the cheek more full. So I'm going to go make the other cheek more angular too and go from there. I'm going to try to get some shadow up against where her hair would be. We're doing good. Now, the problem is right now she's got purple beard. So we got to turn her from purple beard into fierce cheeks. So to do that, we need to actually make ourselves a little bit of a blending mixture. Go ahead and grab a brush full of this 50-50 night sky and bronze flesh / warrior flesh, and a scoop of the warrior flesh, and just mix those two together. And you'll get something halfway in between the two of them. And we'll use that to blend things out. So I'll take that mixture I just created, and I'll go find the offending line where there's not much of a blend going on, and I'll just wiggle my brush down it. For those of you who have taken any other classes with me, this is the world famous wiggly line technique. Actually, I'm not sure if it's famous across the world, but it's at least famous in my classes, because this is how I do all of my blending. Getting the wiggle line. Not perfect, but better than where we were at. Same thing. I don't want to turn this into just another blending class. For those of you who have already taken my other 2 classes, you're going to be like, does he know how to do anything other than just turn every class into a blending class? And then since we are hiding more of the cheek, we'll have to broaden that out a little bit. We didn't completely ease the transition. She's still purple beard on this side. So let's go ahead and grab a little bit more of that. Yeah, there we go. If we've got at least one person from outside of the US, you're right, it is world famous now because the whole world has heard of my Wiggly line technique. There we go. Let's take our palettes out again. I'm going to grab just the faintest brush full of this and a big scoop of that. Mix them together, and now we just have an ever so slightly purple tinted warrior flesh. If I was going to do this like sitting down painting for display, I would probably sit there and actually spend the time to create a bigger puddle of these colors. But just for quick stuff like this works fine. Do another wiggly line. And then we'd have to go through and we have to continue to blend and smooth this, and eventually we would get it where we want it. I'm going to do the other side real quick. Hopefully you can see how much of an improvement that is starting to make on this. Can I repeat the blend of paint I'm using for this? I am using almost pure warrior flesh with just the slightest dab of that 50-50 mix of indigo or night sky indigo and warrior flesh. There we go. More wiggly line. It's easier for me to reach this side of the face. So there we go. So, all right. We're shaping her face a little bit, making her a little fiercer. All right, but we got to continue things. So, oh, UK, Canada at the same time. That's cool. It's great to get seeing people from all over. That's awesome. All right, that was just defining her. Chin. I'm not going to worry about her eyes at the moment, but what I am going to do is I'm going to go find this area in between, essentially her. I guess I'm trying to figure out how. I'm trying to interpret real quick. If I believe that to be the upper eyelid or the eyebrow. I'm going to vote eyelid. I think that's the upper eyelid that we've got sculpted into here. So I'm going to take my purple again, my night sky indigo and my warrior flesh, and I'm going to darken out above that eyelid and under the brow. Can you guys see? There we go. And you can make it wider the further you get from the nose, just to kind of widen it out. We can do this more in the makeup stage. Don't worry about being too precise here. Just get some color in there. And then normally she would have a little bit of shadow right up here where her face meets her hair. So let's put some in there real quick. And because I slopped a little bit with my flesh tone, I'll need to slop a little bit with my purple to hide that. Getting the other side real quick. And then generally the harder you make the shadows, the more fierce the face is going to look. Whereas the softer you make the shadows and highlights, the more just pretty or cutesy things are going to tend to look. It's not a universal truth, but it's, you know, a useful generalization. Here we go. Let's fix some of this egregious, these egregious lines that we have. Before we do that though, let's dab, let's take that purple and let's dab under the nose. Just defining where that is. And then we'll dab, we'll try to follow the line of her mouth. So let the paint flow in there. Cool. We're getting there. She kind of looks like a little doggy with her bright nose there. We'll have to, or we'll fix that when we go through with our next steps here. Perfect. Okay, let's go smooth out those blends there a little bit. It's already 2:30. Wow, time is flying. Once again, we're going to do this primarily by taking some of this, slapping it down, taking some of our warrior flesh, mixing those two mixes together, and then we'll use that to heal some of our shading and highlighting here. Try to wiggle line as best we can. Or if you can't do that, just dab. Dab, 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 dab. Tracy asks, you follow these same techniques with 28mm models? Yes. It's just there's a lot less paint at each step. This is really what I'm doing when I'm working on a 28mm miniature. And maybe what I can do is as we get near the end of the class, I can break out some of my the nicer faces amongst my 28mm collection and show you how, even though it seems ridiculous, you can follow these on smaller miniatures just with less paint each time. There's just a whole lot less surface area to work with when we start talking about the 28mm minis. Okay, there we go. Nice thing about flesh tones too is flesh tones tend to be easier to blend because they don't cover anything. Or I should say at least the light flesh tones don't tend to cover things very well. So the very thing that makes them hard to paint over other colors is something that makes them comparatively easier to blend with. So let's put that back in there. Starting to get there. These blends are really rough, I know, but this in the instance or in the pursuit of moving along at a reasonable pace, that's where we're at. Okay. Just going to real quickly grab that blending tone and I'm going to smooth out what we've got going on here a little bit. We'll come back here later with some makeup colors, so don't stress about this area too much. Not that our crazy, fierce barbarian woman would necessarily even wear makeup, but it's fun to paint, so I like to paint it. Or at least use similar techniques, even on miniatures that are not necessarily likely to be wearing it. Let me acknowledge that I answered that. There we go. Okay, getting there. Like I said, we got to fix her nose real quick. Fixing her nose is just taking that lighter color and going around the rim, or the blending color that we made, I mean. There we go. She's looking a little bit better. We can also, I'm going to take actually this blending color because it's not quite as dark as our actual purple. And I'm going to put a little bit in alongside her eyes, going up to her brow. And this is another area where we can add a little bit of fun to her if we just make little marks like she's furrowing her brow there a little bit. And we'll go fix that up later when we take some of the other paint colors after her. When we get to the highlights. There we go. Let's real quickly break out some highlights on this, and then let's move to the eyes and stuff. And we'll just keep working back and forth on the miniature. How's everyone doing so far? Am I moving too fast? Am I moving too slow? Where are we at? Give me a pulse of the room if you guys can. It's hard when I can't just see and talk to you all in person here. Good, good, good. All right. Thank you all. Thank you. Okay. So we took that youthful flesh and put that down on the palette, right? Let's go ahead and grab a brush full of this, slap it down, grab a brush full of the youthful, mix those together, and that will be our first highlight color. I think I didn't get very much of the warrior flesh. There we go. We'll start with that. We won't go crazy here so that we have plenty of time to do the eyes and the other fun stuff here. But what we're wanting to do is we're just going to put some highlights where the light would hit. The light's going to hit essentially on her cheeks, on her, on the area between her nose and her upper lip. They're essentially on her upper lip. It's going to hit up here. So let's grab some of that highlight color and block out where we think some highlights would be. So let's highlight your forehead a little bit. I'm painting it a little bit thicker than I normally would. I'll go fix it with my other colors and blend, but I want you to see where I'm placing it so far. Oh, as I throw the miniature across the floor, apparently. This isn't one of my nice Dixie cups where I have the quarters blue tacked in the bottom, so it's a little bit more prone to flying away on me. Okay, let's get the nose. And let's get the cheek. And given her sculpt, I'm going to connect this with the nose. She's got her mask of highlight on right now. Her rejuvenating facial mask here. All right. Now we need to blend on that a little bit. She is angry after all. That's right. Oh, sorry, you had to start over there, Kelsey. It happens. Let's see. Okay, now I'm just gonna grab my warrior flesh again, and I'm gonna go back to wiping most of it off. Normally I would have slowly built this up over time, but I didn't want to have you guys sit here and once again just watch me blend for 2 hours. So we're gonna be a little bit. We're gonna sacrifice a little bit on the blends, as much as that hurts me on the inside to say. Just grabbing my warrior flesh and I'm just cleaning up the edges here. Wiggly lines, wiggly lines. Part of what's going on here is I'm paying a little bit of a price for not making sure I had a completely opaque base coat when I went back to do this, or when I did this. We're getting there. Smoothing, 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 smoothing. Okay. Get the other side of the nose. Actually, I'm going to get right here first. Then down here again. There we go. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back through. And I'm going to recreate some of that brush full of warrior and brush full of youthful here. One of these days I'll get the right mix. There we go. And now I'll apply that in not so opaque of a way. Thank you there, Robin. I appreciate it. So let's see. All right. And let's do a little bit more jagged edges to our highlights. That'll hide them a little bit better. And so we'll wiggle brush and dab on the edges of things there. She needs a little bit more time with her foundation sponge. She needs to just keep sponging it there a little bit harder. She'll be okay. A little bit more under the cheeks. I want to get a little bit more close to the eyeball. There we go. Now we're cooking with gas. She's starting to get there. I'm not going to ask why you know makeup techniques and terms. Okay, so I had to, when I started painting miniature faces more frequently, I had to turn in my man card a little bit here because I didn't know how to do any of this stuff. I didn't even understand like the basics of makeup, and I started painting it on my miniatures. And so I had to go like watch YouTube tutorials for how to apply makeup and stuff like that. So I learned a little bit through that, and then I have learned a little bit through my wife as well. So, but that is how I know some of this stuff there. Okay, real quick, I'll fix your lip. And then I'm not going to go too much further with the skin, because right now, hopefully you've started to see us give her face some shape. But now it's time to make this face a fun face, right? So the last thing I am going to do, because I kind of forgot about them, is we need to get her eyelids. So I'm going to take that mix that I just made, and I'm going to highlight these eyelids. Mostly just as an excuse to clean them up from where I was sloppy with the purple. All right. She's got a start of a face here. Let's go ahead and do the eyes, and then we'll go crazy with everything else we can do on the face. Normally I would sit here and I'd blend all this out a lot more, and we'd sit here and we'd blend and we blend and we blend and we blend, but we're gonna put the brakes on the blending for a little bit. Okay. Dudes can rock makeup, nothing wrong with that. I haven't, it's gotta, I can't wear, you know, goth eyeliner with my beard. It just doesn't work for me there. Okay. I've been a little bit all over the place compared to the usual methodical stuff that I do. Everybody have a decent, you know, starting point where they feel, or I shouldn't say everybody, but enough folks feel like they've got a decent starting point to start looking at the eyes here. Cool. All right, then. Good. Thank you, guys. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our palette. And how we did that? 45 minutes? Not bad. All right. We're doing pretty good. So let's grab our brown liner. Our brown liner is going to be our eyeliner. But even on male miniatures at 28, you know, like at 28 millimeters, even if they're not wearing a speck of makeup, this is how I start this process. You need to line the eyes, even if the person isn't wearing eyeliner, to make their eyes pop at the scale that we're talking about. So we're going to go ahead and get some brown liner here. As per usual, I'll mix in a little brush full of water to get us good to go. Figure if it takes us about a half hour to do the eyes, then we are pretty well on track to do a lot of the makeup and fun stuff after that. So sweet. I think we're doing pretty well. Before I start the eyes, I've used up a lot of the absorbency of my paper towel, so we're going to get a new one. Now, I just began this whole thing saying I generally paint the eyes first so that I don't have to worry about my pristine skin under that I haven't painted yet. But in this case, we're going to have to be a little bit more careful because we didn't do that. So go ahead and get some brown liner, and all you want to do is completely black out the eye socket. If your miniature truly is wearing eyeliner, then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to leave a little bit more of the liner showing after you paint the eye. If they're not, you'll want to leave a little bit less, but we still want to start with this step. Like I said, even if this is the most hardened warrior dude in, you know, and you are 100% confident he's not wearing eyeliner, I still start like this with everybody. So something like that. You could just put a little white dot on it and she's crazy vampire girl, and you're done with the eye if you want. Crazy axe wielding barbarian vampire girl. Or a couple of lines and voila, an eye patch. I like that. That's pretty good. One of the things I was thinking about doing, and we might, paint her one way and then call a super audible and go another direction, is we might do kind of like that Conan the Barbarian eye paint, like face paint, where you just do like the strip of like black or like dark blue across the eyes. We go from there. We'll have to see how we're doing time wise when we get near the end. So cool. Her eyes are now blacked out. That's looking pretty good. Let's take our brown liner while we've got it out, and let's go back to her mouth. And let's make this a little darker. Now, in this case, the mouth is very much sculpted for us, but that doesn't mean that we can't do our own thing. If we want to give her a little bit more expression here, we can either keep it curving up and then it becomes a little bit more of a smile, or you could do something like, you could add just a little, cross at the end of it. You can give her a little bit more expression just by you quirk the direction of the end of the mouth. And this applies even to 28 millimeter miniatures. As crazy as that may sound, you can still do this. So I've spent many occasions sitting there trying to get the most perfect brush angle possible to figure out how I'm going to upturn the last little stroke of the brush on a face in order to give a smile instead of a frown. I kind of like how this is looking on her to give her the half smile and the smirk. So I think we're going to stick with that. But we could play around with how you angle the final stroke of the line. Anybody else play around and get like a different expression? Anybody angle it down and get angry? Let's see. Well, if anybody does, you'll have to let me know how it goes. Mine is angry. There we go. You know what you can do? You got this brown liner out. We can give her just a little beauty mark there. Took 10 seconds. Suddenly she has a little bit more expression going on here. You can do this on 28 millimeter miniatures. It's fun. It just adds a little bit of life to what's going on. Make sure you make it small and you're good to go. Now, I'm not going to do the eyebrows, even though those are fun, until we have finished doing the eyes. So we've got our little barbarian girl, and I'm pretty happy with how the eyes are blacked out. I don't think I need to do anything. Give me a second here. What I'm going to do, I don't think I pushed enough past where the eye socket is in this corner of the eye. I want to make sure that I don't end up completely losing the liner. There we go. Okay. Looking good. Now we need to actually, oh, sorry. Aaron asked, did you say blue liner or brown liner? I'm using brown liner at the moment, but you could easily use blue liner if you wanted to. There would be no issue with that. Like I said, I like to use the same liner through the whole miniature. So since I was using brown liner earlier, I'm going to keep using brown liner here now. Cool. I'm liking her already. I think we're going to be pretty happy with this old gal by the time she's done. So, and I bought a spare one of these so that once I'm done with the class, I can go back to her and paint the miniature from the start. So it's going to be fun. All right. Vampiric Mist. Does it have to be Vampiric Mist? No. But should it be pure white? Also no. All you want to do is pick an off-white. I often use linen white, which is kind of a yellow white, or Vampiric Mist is going to work. Just something that's not quite shining stark white, or you're going to look at your miniature and you're going to see the whites of the eyes just crazy white. So we'll take that Vampiric Mist, and we're going to put this down on our palette, and we're going to paint over our brown liner to fill out the actual eyeball. This is not going to be a one coat job, so brace yourself for painting over just about black with white, but it's really gonna look good for us here at the end. Don't forget to water it down. Add your brush full of water. Maybe 2 brushfuls of water, but I don't want to do too many coats. I'm crazy. I use acrylic or craft acrylic paints. Well, there you go. It can certainly work. It can certainly work. I mean, like James Wapple still uses like 50-cent craft brushes and stuff like that. So I know anything is possible. When you're painting eyes like this is especially true of 28mm miniatures. You can't reach. So when you're painting this side of the eye, make sure that you start with the tip of your brush and pull towards the center of the eye. You need to cover up a little bit more of that or she's going to have way too much eyeliner. And then you only have to make it halfway across the eye. Then flip the miniature over and start pulling from the other side of the eye. And that way you're always using the geometry of the brush to your advantage instead of having to fight it all the time. Like I said, that's especially applicable in the 28mm miniature world. Working on it. Yeah, the one brush. Yep, I hear you. Now, my one brush is 1 size 0 Raphael 8404, but I know many people who use the 99-cent and just throw them away when they're done brushes too. So nothing wrong with that. Different strategies for different folks. Once again, I'm flipping the miniature on the side so I can use the corner of the brush to reach where I need it. And notice how I'm leaving a rim of that liner around the eye. This is going to transition. This is going to make the eye stand out from the rest of the face. I do half the eye, then I flip the miniature however I need to hold it. And I do the other half of the eye. There is no difference between doing this on a chibi and a 28mm miniature. I know I've probably said that enough times now. You guys are sick of it, but it's really the case, at least as far as these steps go. We will, because this is a chibi, push the eye a little bit farther than you can usually push a 28mm eye. But, you know, sometimes you get a sweet Bobby Jackson sculpt and those eyes are like dinner plates, and you can still, comparatively for a 28mm miniature, and you can do a lot of this there. My Vampiric Mist has turned chunky. Would Ghost White be a good replacement? Ghost White would be an awesome replacement. Yeah, it's true. Wapple uses a lot of... I miss James. I haven't seen him at a convention in a while here because there haven't been any conventions. But we would always hang out every ReaperCon. So I like to see what he has produced, but I do not have the same repertoire of techniques to replicate him every time. It's going to take a couple coats. As Treebeard once said, don't be hasty now. So just patiently apply that in there. Yes, Rainbow Sculptor does do amazing. It's been a while since I saw Christine there as well. I've been liking what she's been putting out some really cool stuff lately. So there's always too many miniatures, too little time. One of these days I'll have to get one of her sculpts. I think we need one more coat, and then we'll be at a suitable level of opacity to get things done. Fort Wapple versus Castle Markon. I like it. But compared to the mighty Fort Wapple, it would be like, you know, Foxhole Markon or something like that. I don't have the nearly the like bags and bags of miniatures to travel with and everything. So. And if you mess up, the nice thing is the liner is generally smooth enough that you can, if you're very careful, you can either, if it's a small miniature, you just dab back over the eye, or if it's a large miniature, sometimes you can sneak in some of the liner without wrecking anything too bad. Your mileage will vary according to your level of brush control and bravery. Fishing cabin mark, kind of like it. I like it. Cool. All right. That'll work. That'll work. There we go. I really like this sculpt. This is a good sculpt. It's fun. Okay. Hopefully folks are feeling somewhat good about their eyes, because now it's time to really make these eyes come alive. Now, this next step is going to deviate slightly between a chibi and a 28 millimeter miniature just because of the size of the eyes. But what I do when I'm approaching a 28 millimeter miniature is I get some brown liner on my brush, wipe the worst off, and make a very small central dot to figure out where you want the eye to be. Now I'm going to do this for comedic effect here, but I want you guys to see super scared chibi girl, or really shocked, really angry. Depends on how you want to interpret it. It would depend on what we did with the eyebrows as to where we would be, but I think that's hilarious. So yeah, Simpson's eyes. There we go. We just got to paint her yellow. We'll be good to go. Very Corpse Bride. Yeah. Now, you can actually learn a heck of a lot about how you can alter the faces on your miniatures by going and looking at how anime artists or just cartoonists in general indicate expressions, because the way that we indicate expressions in art is not necessarily 100% true to reality, but it's been very effectively honed over time. So you can see stuff like, if I want to indicate a scared expression or a really angry expression or something like that, you know, it's like, it's a combination of like eye size and placement along with eyebrows. I could then take her eyebrows and give them really, you know, it's like make them really sharp and slanted, and she'd look super angry. Or if I raised her eyebrows up and made them like upticked on the end, like that, then she would look more surprised, right? Looks like she's biting her tongue. It's like maybe she's chewing on her cheek or something like that on that. So who knows? But what I would do here is on a 28 millimeter miniatures, I would do this to figure out where I want the eyes to be. Now in this one, I did a very classic central eye placement, but I want to show you guys something else here. So I'm going to cover those back over. And I'm going to instead have her looking off to the side. We can make her more sly if we give her a sidelong look here. So we can either, if we put her eyes looking off this direction, I think it's going to be like she thinks somebody's behind her sneaking up on her. And if we put her eyes off this direction, it'll be like she's looking towards the next foe. That's kind of how I get the expressions in my head. I'm not sure. So why don't we do towards the next foe here? Because we're going like really fierce like. So I'm going to shift the eye placement to this side. And they don't have to be perfect with each other. We're just getting an idea of where we're going to make the center of the eye, right? And you can play around with this a couple of times and be like, oh, wow, that really changes her expression a little bit just to move the eye around. Let's see. Okay, though, we need to actually push these eyes a little bit further forward. So I like this. That's a decent center of the eye placement. I need to probably move this one up a little bit more. And then what I would do in a 28 millimeter miniature is I would go into that little dot and I would start trying to give just like the slightest hint of roundness to that little dot. And then generally something like that would completely fill the eyelid on a 28 millimeter miniature, and we would be working on the inside of this from steps to come. However, I have much bigger eyes on Chibi Gal here. So we're going to do the same thing, only we're going to make them much bigger. So I'm going to make a big parenthesis on one side of her eye. I'm going to make it go all the way down to the bottom, or nearly all the way down to the bottom. And then I'm going to make another big parenthesis on the other side. Don't make this too big to start with, because the nice thing is you can always make them bigger. It's harder to make them smaller than it is to make them bigger. Just try to round it out here. Start small, make them bigger later. Fill that in. Just lovingly round out that eye. I want this to be opaque, so I'm going back over it a little bit. And then I'm going to increase the roundness factor of her eye on this side a little bit. There we go. Okay. One down. Now, normally I would just do one and then do the other one entirely. The only trick here is, once again, because these are so big, I can get away with some things that I couldn't do on a smaller miniature. On a smaller miniature, I would start to make one eye larger, and then I would go and I'd start to make the other eye larger. And I would just keep doing that back and forth until they both were the same size and they were in roughly the position that I wanted. Henry asks, will the class recording be on YouTube later on? Yeah, my understanding is that I heard somebody say next week, but I'm not sure if I heard that from an official source or just hearsay, so I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, it should be on YouTube before too long. Got to make sure we leave a little bit of the white. So this is a perfect example of, I'll make the eye. Sorry, I'm not even sure if I kept that in frame for you guys there. I'll partially make the eye, and I'll look at it compared to the other one and be like, that's not quite right yet. So we'll continue to make it bigger here. After the event weekend. Okay, cool. Thanks there. So keep rounding out this side of things. I often tuck my eyes a little bit more into the top of into the top eyelid than I do the bottom eyelid. And then we're gonna round it out yet further. Chibi eyes can get so big, you're like, why did I bother trying to place them on one side or another? They still fill the whole socket. I don't think we're quite at that point. So that's pretty close. I just feel like, oh, sorry, that's pretty close. It's a little off though, but it's a little off right in this corner. So I might have to make her her pupil, her actual iris, sorry, extend all the way into this corner. I was going to try to leave a little bit more white here, but I may not be able to. And now her eyes look like they're going in different directions. So what I got to do is I got to shape. I can either make this one bigger or I can make this one smaller. Let's make this one smaller. So we're going to make it smaller by grabbing back out our Vampiric Mist. And we're just going to gently eat the edges of the eye. Generally, I'm going to have to eat more than I need to eat because it's hard to be 100% precise with this. But we're getting there. Now I'm going to shape that eye again. Oh, can I leave the mini under the camera when I set her down trying to... Sorry, the reason I do that is one, she'll roll, and two, the camera's not focused at that level, but I'll give that a shot for you. There we go. We're starting to get there. I'm going to make it her eye a little longer. You really just got to go back and forth with this step as long and as many times as you need to in order to get it right. I'm actually pretty happy with that. I'm going to shape the edge of this eye a little bit more, and then we're going to call that good. Cool. Looking pretty cute, I think. Maybe not perfectly symmetric the way we've got it. I might need to eat a little bit of the bottom of the eye next to it, or of this eye. But I could sit here absolutely forever working on this, and you guys would not learn what we're trying to learn, rather than seeing me just execute it, though. Oops, sorry. Rather than me just trying to execute it to a higher and higher level. There we go. There you go. So let's do the fun stuff, right? Let's look at our little miniature. She needs some color in those eyes. So let's bring the eyes to life with color. We've got our greens, right, that we agreed upon earlier. We've got dragon green, naga green, and cat's eye green, which I don't even have in frame. There we go. Let's break them out on our palette here. Excuse me, sorry, let me grab a sip of water. Okay. Shaking the paints. There are a million different ways to paint eyes, all of which have varying levels of just animation feel to them here. I'm going to show you the way that, one of the ways that I like to do it. I feel that this tends to produce really nice, bright, gem-looking eyes, but it's not the only way to do this by a long shot. That is clogged. Oh boy. It's spit and paint at me here. Don't want the green on my nice bright white t-shirt that I have to wear or else my camera freaks out and can't figure out the white balance. I wanted to wear all my awesome black nerd shirts there, but alas, the camera had different ideas. There we go. There we go. There we go. So we've got our colors out. And what we're going to do here is we're going to water, or we're going to thin them all down a little bit. Brush full of water in each of them. Yet another paper towel here. There we go. How's everybody feeling about their eyes so far? Do you have an approximately oblong object in the center of an approximately white field? If not, there'll be plenty of time to make it happen. Man, so? Yeah. This part's tricky. And this would be one of the things that I would go back and forth on for a really long time. And with the smaller eyes, this is very high stakes. I understand. It's very frustrating to be like, oh, this is ever so slightly off. Am I willing to go back and try to fix that one little thing that's bugging me? And then you do it and you mess up the whole eye, and then you do it 2 more times, and it finally succeeds, and it's all worth it at the end. Yeah, best eyes ever. Totally. These things are huge. I love them. Okay. We're going to grab this dragon green first, our darkest green. If you're not following along, I'm just going to refer to it as darkest, middle, lightest, and we'll try to go from there. So grab your darkest color. Put some on your brush. Take some off on your thumb so that your bristles glisten with the color, but are not full of it. And then what I want you to do is I want you to paint approximately a U, a big U on the bottom of the eye. If we picked our colors well, hopefully we won't see this one that brightly because it's going to be fairly close in color to, it's going to be fairly dark. And we're going to do a U on the other eye. If you do a complete donut, it tends to look a little corny in my experience, but there are many ways to do this. So try what makes you feel happy. And you can go up a little bit higher into the center of the eye than you think you can. So we got a thick U in the eye. This gets hard to do on 28mm miniatures, and there's some of them that I say, heck, it's not possible. I just leave it black and I dot the eye with a little catch light like we're going to do in a few seconds. But sometimes you get a 28mm with big eyes, and then you can do this. You just have to be really, really controlled. Let's grab your middle color. Okay, so my middle green here. And you're going to make a U again, but you're going to make a U that's slightly farther down. It doesn't go up as high. It's closer to the edge of the eye. Might have to go over it a couple times to get the opacity that you're looking for. Do the same thing on the other eye. I want to bring it down a little bit further on this particular eye. There we go. Starting to come along. And now, this is where hopefully you've already picked where your light source is coming from on our miniatures. I have a joke I'm right-handed, so my light is always coming from the right, which is actually the miniature's left. My light is always coming from like this. So the light is going to be reflecting off of this top right side of each of her eyes, which means that the bottom left portion is going to get a little glisten of transmitted light. So I'm going to take my lightest green and I'm going to make the smallest little crescent at the bottom left of her eye. So hopefully you got something going on like that at this point. Now, if you're like me and you may, darn it, that's too thick, that's okay. We've got other colors that we can heal it up with. Let's grab our mid green again. And let's just go in and thin that little crescent. And if that didn't thin it sufficiently, grab your dark green and thin that little crescent. Sometimes you thin it completely and you mess up like I just did. It happens. Let's grab out that mid green and fix our fixing. Sorry, a little high up here, aren't I? I'm going to grab the lightest green. Is this further inside the eye or outside the darkest green? It's covering up a portion of the darkest green. So we made the darkest green extend really high as a U, and then we just make the sides of the U shorter and the sides of the U shorter each time. But we cover up about the same area each time. Hopefully that answers your question there. There we go. And now we're ready for the thing that actually will bring these eyes to life. The thing that is so important that if you skipped all this iris stuff on a 28mm miniature and only did this last step, that in and of itself would still sell your eyes as reflective. And what I need you to do now is I need you to get out your pure white, your bright sparkling light. I'll set that down there and set that out on your palette somewhere. You're not going to need that much of it, so you don't have to go crazy. Water it down a little bit just so it flows off of your paintbrush nice, but not. But you can leave it a little. You can leave this a little bit on the thicker side. All right, get a nice clean brush. Load it up with that white. Take off a good chunk of it on your thumb for control, and then go in here and go boop and boop. Make sure that the catch light is entirely contained within within the eye and that it doesn't accidentally butt up against the white of the iris, or things will disappear. Or it won't look right. It will look like you're missing a chunk out of your eye. But as long as it's fully contained in the iris, you'll be good to go. And suddenly, look at those cute, adorable little eyes. We're doing good, right? Now, lest you've got to this point and said, that's impossible. You can't do that on a 28mm miniature. Let me show you a 28mm miniature where you're able to do this. You just have to be smaller and more controlled. So practice. On some big chibis, and then once you feel really content with it, go and apply it on a 28mm miniature. Now, this dwarf does have big eyes, but I applied the same technique. There's no way I'm going to get the light so you can catch the other eye. But just little U's on the bottom of the eyelid, iris, and then a little catch light up top. This guy has huge eyes for a 28mm miniature, so we can do all these things. And if you can fit them all in there, they look good. And if you can't fit them all in there, just focus on getting the catch light, and you're going to be in pretty good shape. So cool. She's coming to life. We got cute little eyes. They're maybe a little bit off as compared to each other. Maybe I needed to move the left eye a little bit further to the right, but from most viewing angles, she looks just fine. She looks like she's looking off to the side like she should be. Now, sometimes if you've watered down your white too much, you might have to dab the same area a couple times to get that catch light. You can do more catch lights. We could go absolutely crazy anime with these eyes if we wanted to by leaving our catch light up there. And then we could have another catch light or a catch dash down here. Depending on how many animated things you watch, you might see even more sparkle in the eye, but I find that anything more than that is not quite to my taste. So I'm pretty happy with this. Set her down. Anyone super happy with your eyes? Anyone feel like this has been helpful eye stuff so far? Pretty happy? That's good. Happy with one eye. Oh, that's how it always goes, right? Even for me. One eye will be beautiful and then please, thrilled. Good, good. Now, for the other half of the class where you're like, my eyes were not what I wanted them to be, don't sweat it. In fact, it happens, and there's a good number of times where I've just had to just completely black the eye back out, put the white back in and start from that step. So it happens. I remember I spent 2 hours when I was first starting to try to do more intense stuff with my eyes. I spent 2 hours on like pretty much an hour a piece on 28mm little eyes. And that was me messing up, fixing it, messing up, fixing it, messing up, fixing it, messing up, fixing it. And I finally got to the end, and that was just huge, explosive, sigh of relief and happy to move on to the next step. And then you do that a couple times, and then hopefully you're a little bit more like, doop, you got right where you want it. But practice makes perfect. All right, we're doing good. We got a half hour left just to have fun with the expressions. So we're rocking and rolling here. Let's give her some eyebrows, because the eyebrows are going to help define her expression further. And then once we've done the eyebrows, let's do some makeup. And we could do a scar. We'll just have to see how much time we've got and what everybody's feeling. But first things first, let's do those eyebrows. So we've still got brown liner on our palettes. Let's go ahead and grab some of that brown liner. Let's take the worst of it off on our thumb so that it's nice and controllable. And let's start sketching out these eyebrows. So I'm going to give her like upturned backs of her eyebrows just to make her look a little bit more exciting here. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. I'm only going to do half of them because we're going to think about what we want to do here further. So I went about halfway through the eye. We'll go about halfway through the eye again. Some more like painted than real, but close enough, Maybe she just really plucks her eyebrows. So now I'm going to darken those out a little bit more. So I chose to upturn the backs to give kind of that, I don't know, more intense, awake look to the eyebrows. But you're going to have to play around with the angles, see what you enjoy. And now we can decide, we can add a little bit of expression to her here. This is, this, like, we could do some expressions that would only be possible with Chibi, but we can upturn, we can see how it's going to affect her expression. So we've got her expression right now. Take a look at that. Now I'm going to turn up the end of her eyebrows here. I'm going to turn that one up, and then I'm going to give this one a little zigzag. And we can ask ourselves, did that do anything? Are we happy with that? And we could bring them both in if we want. We can angle them both down if we wanted to be angry. We can, you know, if we raised them up and made them go across, she'd look more surprised. You just got to play around with the positioning and see what you like. All this. Tell you what I don't like. I don't like that little error I made right there. So I'm going to have to go fix that with the skin tone again. Once again, you can't do all of this on a 28mm miniature, but what you can do is you can control the angle that the eyebrow begins at and ends at in order to control the expression on the face of your miniature. So if you're just like, why does my miniature not look exactly like I thought they were going to look? Try angling the eyebrows a little bit differently, and you should be in pretty good shape. She's got like a little piece of something from the primer stuck in her eye. It's bugging me. So while you all catch up here doing your eyebrows, I have these really sharp little tweezers. I'll go try to get that with. There we go. All right, cool. Yep, no, that doesn't look good. So as soon as we do that, we say, that doesn't look good. We grab out the flesh color again, and we fix it. As long as you're willing to do some trial and error, faces do not have to be super scary. Just know that whatever you paint, you can fix with paint. And that'll take away a lot of the worry. How'd everybody's eyebrows go? Anybody find any fun combos? Anybody do like super angry eyebrows? I know I'm asking you guys to do a lot of painting and typing at the same time, so sorry for my demanding status here as a teacher. Super angry. Of course, I like it. I like it. Angry on mine, more down tiered. I like it. So yeah, I could have done the same thing on mine. I'm in the interest of time, I'm going to leave mine the way that they are. But now we got to give her a touch of makeup. Now we won't go super crazy on this, but we're going to give her just a little bit of like lipstick. Mine are a definite V shape. I like it. Okay. Very inquisitive. Cool. Now, when you guys all hopefully go to my section of the Discord after all this, and you post pictures, then you can all see each other's miniatures and see how the different angles everybody did the eyebrows at hugely affect the expression that everyone gives there. Arched one of them like The Rock does. I love that. That's great. It's great. We just get to have fun with this here. Okay, grab that clear magenta out and go ahead and put some down on your palette here. The Reaper clears are super cool because they're very vibrant, but they also have a clear base, so they don't cover super well, which for our purposes, both of those things are a plus. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a big brush full and mix it in and get this extra watery. We're essentially going to turn it into a pseudo glaze here. Wipe off the worst. And now when I load my brush this time, it's so watery it wants to fill up the whole brush. So load it up, wipe a good chunk of it off on a paper towel so that there's only a little bit left, and then go back to your miniature. And now what I'm going to do is I'm only going to just highlight the bottom lip, and I'm only going to do the top portion here. So I'm just going to let that happen. Whenever I'm painting lips on miniatures, I only ever do the bottom lip. This is if you do both, it can be very easy to turn into a clown. Just a little trick for you there. Now, if I would have watered this down a little bit further, maybe broke out some of my paint additives, like a glaze medium or something, I would have been able to finesse this to where it was a smooth blend. It's not quite a smooth blend here, so that's okay. We're just going to go grab our warrior flesh, and we're going to trim up the edges here as we need to. And we're going to add just a hint of color there. What you can do, if you really want to, is you can actually mix a hair of this magenta with, I went straight for the jugular vein there and just applied the clear magenta. What you can do instead is you can mix your clear magenta with your flesh tone, and you can make some smaller steps and build it up. I'm still trying to fix that little corner of the mouth. I'm not super happy with that corner. There we go. Now I'm happy again. And now I'm going to bring back out the center portion of her lip again. I'm not happy with how much I took off there. So it's very back and forth. You just got to keep at it until you get it the way you want it. And then there you go. So I'm liking that quite a bit. Now, if I wanted her lipstick to be relatively dull, I would leave it like that. If, however, I want to give the effect of like a gloss, or like even just maybe a lip gloss, I go grab my white. So this is my pure white. And we decided that the light is coming from the upper right here. So go ahead and just give her a little shine on her lip towards your light. Now you might have to put that white down and decide, hey, the edges are too stark, which I'm gonna broaden this out so that is definitely the case. And then what you can do is you can go back in with your clear magenta and you can just lightly cover up the edge of it, and it will show through a little bit, and you'll get a nice clear, you'll get a nice transition. And we can play with this, and certain lip schemes are going to make this one work better or worse. And we might decide she doesn't need gloss at all. Why would she wear some glossy? And then we cover up all of the white, and then we're good to go. Hopefully, you're looking pretty good there. I'm pretty happy. After that, what are we doing? We got 20 minutes left. Cool, we got plenty of time. Plenty of time for some fun here. You know what I want to do? I think we can bring out, I think we can give her some eyeshadow here if we want to. let's give her some green. And guess what? We've already got green on our palette. So let's make her eyeshadow match her eyes. So go ahead and take some of your darkest green. And what I want you to do is I want you to put that in the deepest recesses of her eye. And you can do this, once again, 28mm miniatures. It's just going to take some time and practice to make this all work together right for you. Grab green, do the other eye. I'm constantly flipping the miniature so that I can use the tip of the paintbrush to my advantage instead of having to try to put my arm at all kinds of angles that it doesn't normally want to be at to get this done. So there we go. We started to add some of the green there and things. Hopefully you guys can see somewhat well. The color balance needs a little bit of help. There we go. Now let's grab our medium green. And what you're going to do is you're just going to feather out the edges of this a little bit. Oops, I'm sorry. I'm not even on camera right now. Hopefully I did that some of that step on camera. And I know we're eating up what we did earlier. I would have just done what we were doing earlier if I knew I was going to leave it like that. And then if I was just going to use the natural skin tone, if I knew I was going to go back and add the eyeshadow, I probably wouldn't have shaded like that. And then we'll take the brightest green and just do the tops here. Take the brightest green again. Get the other one real quick. Cool. She's coming along. You know what we're going to do now? I am going to grab youthful flesh again, because we can pop some things. We can give her some expression on her face by grabbing our lightest flesh color. My old flesh colors are kind of dried, so I'm going to put out a couple dots of new stuff here. And once again, I want to make sure that these are a little bit watered down. Sadly, I'm not one of those artistic free spirits who can just plop stuff down on their wet palette and then like use the water from the rims of the palette to water things down. It's a very good skill to have. It's just not one that I have honed to this point. That, paper towel. Okay, let's have fun with this color here. So we're going to take useful flesh. We're going to take useful flesh, and we're going to furrow her brow a little bit. So we're going to take and give a little highlight there. And we're going to give a little upturn line here. We're going to give a little bit at the tip of her cute little nose. We're going to give her a little bit of a Cupid's bow on her lip. So just leave in the center a little bit. Do some of that. Start bringing out her expressions. Let's, normally I'd put some under the cheeks. We can maybe do it just to highlight the cheeks a little bit more. You keep hearing useful flesh. Yeah, youthful flesh, but yeah. Youthful flesh is a useful flesh color. Just make a little crescent. Just give it a little bit more light reflection. You don't have to go crazy. Just do a little bit there. I'm going to give her a little bit more higher on her nose. Good. Here's where we take and we make that little quirk to her face. To her smile. We can bring that out a little bit more if we highlight that a little bit. And any of these things, I'm just kind of winging it at this point. So you might see something that's like, I do not like how that looked. And that's okay, because I'm not trying to show you the one sole way to do these. You might try some of it and be like, I don't like that. Or I do like that. I'm going to do that again. So just keep playing around with it. I'm just having, this is my last class that I have to teach for the con. And I'm just having fun with you guys playing around with this face. Puffy Cheeks. There we go. She could be Princess Puffy Cheeks. That's what we'll go with. I grabbed some of, this is a slightly toned down mix. This isn't the pure youthful flesh, but I'm just getting ready to pop her eyelids a little bit here. And then we grab youthful flesh. Just popping those where the see the most light. Now with a lot of like grizzled dudes, you can do like lines across the forehead, like they've got all their like they've got some age wrinkles there and everything. You could even, if they're older, you can do some at the corners of their eyes. You can do all kinds of stuff there. You know what I think she would look cool with? I think she'd look really sweet with like one of those like across eye scars here. So what we're going to do is, but we'll do it as like, instead of being a real scar, it's going to be like the makeup scar. So I'm just going to take my brown liner and I'm going to go, I'm just going to, oh, scary, but we got to do it. And then I mean, how could we not? Look at that. I know at this point we're just going crazy and there's probably a little bit, you know, more going on with the face than I would typically do there, but we're just having some fun with it here. The nice thing about the chibis is they give you tons of space to play around. But you could do this. I mean, you can draw a little slash through the eye of a 28 millimeter, and you can, you know, give things some love there and everything. So cool. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. We've got like 10 minutes left. Can you guys think of something you want to see that we have not done? Q&A. How would you blend the purple on the neck into the rest of the skin tone? You mean like what we've got down here into the neck or up into the cheeks? Oh, into the neck? I would just keep it going from here. I would let me grab some of my purple if I still got it. I would just, I'll slap some more of that back on here. And then I would just do everything in reverse here. So by the time you get down to the neck, you'd have a little bit of purple going on there. And then I'll grab some of the purple, put some of the, is that even the right stuff? I'm not sure it was. But anyway, grab some of that stuff, start slowly lightening it up. Slowly lightening it up. Then I grab my warrior flesh, slowly lightening it up. We'll give a little bit more to the clavicle. And then, you know, and hopefully by the time you're, maybe here maybe you're a little bit further than what I've gone. You've transitioned into warrior flesh, and it's all good. Trick is necks are usually hard to see, so they're a little bit more forgiving on the blending, and we would sit there and just use half and half mixtures of things until we were pretty happy. I think I can maybe get a little bit more blending going on there for you. I'm rushing this badly, but you get the picture. Hopefully I'm showing the picture. And then you would just keep it going out. And by the time it gets down her chest, you'd be highlighted again there and everything. Maybe give her cheeks some color as if she was raging. Somebody said blush. Okay, blush is the one makeup thing that continuously gives me troubles. I don't understand it, and so I can't paint it very easily. So for that, probably should go watch some actual YouTube makeup tutorials, unless you're already like, hey, I know how to apply blush myself, and then give that a shot. And he says you would keep the deep purple, and blend back to the flesh tone. Absolutely. Maybe give her cheeks some color as if she was raging. Cool. All right. Thanks there, Justin. I'm glad that works for you there. Let's see. Thin red pink, very thin, light, very thin. Yeah, you can take some very if you want to put some back into her cheeks, this would be a great opportunity to take that. We could take a little bit of our, let me go back to my palette. We could take a little bit of our warrior flesh, put that down, take a little bit, just a touch of our clear magenta, work that in. Maybe we want a little bit more warrior flesh here, so it's only lightly there. And then I would just, okay, if you guys are willing to let me grab out some stuff that I wouldn't normally grab out for a class like this, I will grab wash medium. Love Reaper's wash medium here. This will keep my glazes from coffee staining. Unless I use this stuff, I cannot for the life of me figure out how to glaze. So I use this stuff a lot. So wash medium. And then I know blush and adding color to the cheeks are almost the same thing, but I'm still scared. Gotcha. Yeah, thanks there, Betty. It's like, this is one of those things that I am not super familiar with. Let's see. There we go. So now we've got a glaze that it just adds a touch of pink to it. And I would take that glaze, I would wipe a portion of it off on a paper towel, and then I would go back in and I would lightly apply several layers to her cheeks. And then I would let it dry. And I would go back in and I would get more of it. Gonna lightly try to cool, dry it here because I'm impatient. Actually, I'm going to try to be patient so I don't completely botch that. But what I will show you is this is essentially the technique that I used on the nose of this dwarf. So if you can tell, this dwarf has got some nice pink going to his nose. And so it's just glazes of this clear magenta to build that up on his nose there. The question is, would dry brushing be effective for this too? I don't like to use dry brushing for anything other than textured surfaces because it can make things kind of chalky. It might work. I'm not going to say it wouldn't. I don't have a good confident feeling towards the idea. So this is still that clear. This is still that magenta and warrior flesh glaze to try to add some color back in. It's slowly getting there, but we probably need 3 or 4 coats. And I don't know that we have time within the, I don't know if you guys can even see it on the, on what we got going here. Ooh, I'll use that. I can use that to help blend down there. Blush on the apples of her cheeks, the raised parts. Cool. Gotcha. All right. Cool, cool. Just the gloss. Cool, cool. Yeah, you guys can't really see it yet at the moment. So, but what if I'm very brave. All right, I mixed a little bit more of the clear magenta in. Let's see if I can get this. Okay, that might work. This is a little bit stronger glaze. Okay, I can definitely notice a color shift. I'm not sure if you guys can still, just because there's a little bit of color fidelity loss in all of this. But we'd be moving in the right direction with a couple more. Yeah, you guys can only see the shine. I'm sorry. But that would be how I would approach that. I would slowly glaze that up there. And, you know, maybe we could put some of that in here. That looks nice. And a little bit up here. You just got to play. You just got to play around, have some fun. Well, with that being said, I think we got 3 minutes here left in our class. So I want to make sure that I get you all the butter emoji from taking my class, so that you can add that to your Discord name if you want. Let me swap out of my camera here so that I can get that for you. But all in all, has this been helpful to everybody? Have you learned hopefully a little bit more about how to paint faces? Has it made it less scary, the idea of going and painting a face and giving some expression to it? Awesome, awesome. Let me kill the screen share. And then once I do that, I can go get the number for you guys for the butter emoji. 71935. So I will type that in. 71935 for butter. Gotcha, gotcha. Cool. All right. I am super glad to hear that this has been helping so many out there. So yeah, awesome. Cool. Well, like I said, I am around. I've got my Discord. I've got my portion of the Discord around that will stay open for a while. So please, please, please take pictures of your miniatures and drop them into the Discord. Let me know if you want some feedback and tips and advice. I'll be more than happy to provide it. And I'll just be really excited to see everybody's faces through all this. Hopefully you can look at each other's painted miniatures and say, oh, this is what angling the eyebrows a slightly different direction did, or something along those lines. But cool. Well, in that case, then, thank you guys all very much again. We got the Discord link down in the chat for anybody who needs that. And yeah, you guys have been an awesome class. Thank you so much for having so much fun and participating with me so well. I look forward to seeing you all later. And with that, happy painting.